Hi guys, welcome back to the channel. Dan here, and I'm joined by Dan.
Hello.
Welcome, Dan. So today we have got another topic which was fueled by Beer Moretti. We're not sponsored by them, but we're not against it. So if you want to get in touch, guys, you're more than welcome. Today we are going to discuss why have Games Workshop chosen this timeline for Warhammer: The Old World, as opposed to any other timeline or the timeline that we know and love from Warhammer Fantasy Battles. Especially, I suppose, with a thought that they could have chosen the timeline that Warhammer Total War is set in and followed those campaigns. In the previous video, we hinted that there have been over 40 million purchases or downloads of that game. So there's 40 million people familiar with that timeline. Games Workshop is bringing back the old world, but they have chosen to do it in a different timeline. Now, why would they have done that? And we were trying to rack our brains around it. And I think the more beers we sank, the more clear our vision was, although I don't remember much of it now.
Yeah, indeed. I think we've said previously, I think by moving the timeline, you give yourself more creative opportunity. I think. I also think that I don't know how many of the designers that were around for the old world, the world that was, and the end times are still around, but there's a reason that they blew it up, I guess. And I think it's quite cool to go back and explore some of the history.
Yeah, and I think ultimately they're a company that sells models, and as much as they could just re-release things and update them, it's nice to have the creative, to have the ability, I suppose, and the creative freedom to create something new and give us brand new models that we want to buy, and not just rehash the same thing, I suppose.
Yeah, definitely. I think that's very true. I think as to when it's set, I guess it's quite an interesting time, isn't it? As you've said previously, there's no College of Magic at this point. The elves are still quite a mysterious presence. Like they wouldn't, it was really in the Great War Against Chaos where Teclis got on a ship, went over, and started chatting to the men. So they're still not massively involved. I guess the dwarves in the Empire are, because they will have been from Sigmar's time, but the dwarves aren't completely like downtrodden at this point, are they?
No, they're in what's called the Silver Age, so they're actually a bit resurgent compared to how we knew them in Warhammer Fantasy Battles.
And will we have had? Yes, we've had Gars le Breton, because we've got Bretonnia, haven't we?
Yeah. So yeah, there is a lot going on actually. The Empire is just recovering from a war against the vampire counts. It's got no clear leader. The individual city states are run by their own burgomeisters, and there's competing factions trying to be the emperor, and different leaders emerging, and there's a lot actually going on that hasn't been discovered, and now they've got the opportunity to kind of create brand new units in line with that. Like you said, they won't be the traditional majors that we know. We don't know how advanced Black Powder is. Bretonnia have got Foot Knights now that have come back, which is really cool. So it's nice that it's a blank canvas. And I think something that I said in the previous video, what I really like about this is that when an army book is going to be released, instead of saying, we've moved your White Lions from metal to plastic or whatever the move may be, you don't know what's going to come out. You've got no idea. It could be anything within reason. But I think that's something that's really exciting, and I think it's important not to think that. I think they don't want to rehash the same thing. It would for players like us, as much as we enjoy the world that was, there's nothing stopping you getting your high elf army off the shelf and me getting my wood elf army off the shelf and us playing it anyway.
Nope. And also, by doing it this way, in like 30 years when we're old, You know, older. You know, Joshua and his mates will be recording a thing about the end times and ranting about it, and we'll be like, we remember when it happened the first time, and it'll go like all the way through. Gone through the timeline.
One of the things that you were saying previously off camera, Dan, was really interesting to me, was about, you know, one of the reasons we were asking why have they chosen this particular timeline is because it, you know, we were a bit confused that it doesn't marry up with the game Warhammer Total War, but they have said in the articles that the designers who are designing, for example, Kislev, are the people who are designing Kislev for the old world. Now, they said those models are quite a way off, but it's interesting to think that actually there will be a bit of familiarity in at least those factions, so they can get something for the tabletop, even though the timeline is a bit different. But you were talking about, for example, Spartan games and things like that, and I think what you said was really interesting. There's quite a lot of value actually about what it can be like to chase people who are interested in a certain franchise with miniatures.
Yeah, I mean, we used to talk a lot about the hobby gene when I worked in Games Workshop, and there are people all over the world, loads and loads of them, that have the hobby gene, the Warhammer gene, that enjoy sitting down, building miniatures, painting miniatures, reading about miniatures, playing games with miniatures. And Games Workshop's mission was to find all those people and make sure that they had a Games Workshop store that could, or a Warhammer store now, that could help and encourage those people. I think what's really important to say, though, is that there's a lot of people who are into computer games that have, I say, have not got the hobby gene, as if it's like they're something's wrong with them. It's not that, obviously, but the Warhammer hobby is, as we know it, the miniatures painting side. And I think it's important to say now, Games Workshop is so big that actually, you know, the miniatures side of the company is just a part of what it offers now. But there are a lot of people that actually have no interest, would have no interest, nor time to, because if you think with a computer game, you sit down, you turn it on and you play it. And yes, you invest a lot of time in it. But the difference between that and create, you know, buying, building, painting, creating an army is quite stark. And I think it's important to reflect on the fact that actually, when Lord of the Rings came out, the films, and Games Workshop got the miniatures license, and it made a lot of money. There are whole segments of Warhammer World that were built with the profits from the Lord of the Rings. That now, I mean, it may be different now, in fairness, because it's been a while since I worked at Games Workshop, obviously. But there was a long period of time where those office blocks sat completely empty. You know, because there just wasn't the work, because it dropped away after the initial hype. And actually, one of the reflections was that you had all these people coming in, but they weren't doing the whole, you know, intro game, intro paint, going through the beginner's progress. They were just coming in, buying a Balrog, because it was a Balrog, and running off, you know, going off to build it. And they weren't, and this sounds very arrogant, I appreciate, but they weren't becoming hobbyists with a long-term engagement in the hobby. So they came, that, you know, it's flash in the pan, there's a bunch of money, gone. But that's no good for long-term sustained growth of a company. And actually, when Dawn of War was out, there wasn't like this massive spike of people just randomly coming in and buying Space Marines. And as a computer game example, and then, like you said, Spartan Games got the Halo franchise license. Now, you would have said, I even thought, flipping heck, that's going to explode for them. They're going to be a massive company. They folded. You know, and we don't know the full ins and outs of that, obviously, but it's just, I think it's very easy to think there's a correlation. You know, 40 million people here, this game's going to be massive. But actually, it's not quite as simple as that.
Yeah. I think Games Workshop on their side, they've got marketing. You know, Spartan were a small company, but you have to say there must be enough word of mouth among, because Halo is and was huge, and the miniatures for that game are really good as well, and very faithful and true.
Yeah, the miniatures were great.
There's not many foots that they put wrong, I have to say, to be honest with you.
No. But well, I think one of the things they suffered from was sort of production and availability as well. I know at the time for some of their other games, and so they lost that kind of loyalty of their core fan base.
I think it's a really good point that you've made actually there, Dan, because I was thinking, you know, wouldn't it be nice, even like you said, people bought a Balrog, wouldn't it be nice to be able to have your specific maybe hero or leader that you liked or something like that, you know, even if you weren't going to play the whole game or collect the whole army. But there actually hasn't been anything stopping people from collecting Karl Franz on Deathclaw. I don't fully understand why he's still in the Age of Sigmar range, to be honest, because Karl Franz is long dead, but it still says Karl Franz on all the, you know, armor and regalia. I don't know if it was to do with that, but I haven't seen, you know, I've never seen it sold out on the web store or anything like that.
And I also think, like, a lot of the time when you see computer game characters realized in physical form, they're pre-painted collectible pieces, you know, and people just want them on the shelf.
Yeah. But there will still be, of those 40 million people, even if it was as low as 1 in 80, that's still 500,000 people.
Oh yeah, there's no doubt that it should have a positive impact, and I hope it does, because obviously I'd like the Warhammer Old World project to be successful. Very much so. Almost as much as I'd like Empire troops that aren't covered in random detail and take ages to paint.
Almost as much as I would like to see a Hobbit unit return for the Empire. We can have the Moot represented. So I think to kind of round us out, we are very excited for this timeline, and we're pleased that they've chosen it because it gives us something interesting and new, and we're quite keen to explore the old world. We were into the novels and reading the army books and the timelines and the backgrounds, and you know, I think we would both like to see it move forward a little bit, so that there's rumblings of chaos coming from the north, and you know, we might get to see a young Magnus the Pious or hear stories about him, you know, something. But there is still space for them to create all new lore that gets us interested. So yeah, the creative freedom, I think, is massive, is a really big part of it. And Tom said something really interesting to me, actually, in one of our previous videos, was about what they've done for Age of Sigmar they could do for the old world, where we're saying, they're bringing back old kits, but you look at something like Gloomspite Gits and the glow up that's had based around one sort of old kit, the Night Goblins. You know, if they bring back some old kits and do the job that they've done around them, it'll be amazing. It'll be a real renaissance and a real time to, if they get it right, which is why I think in a way it's important that they start small so that what they do is right. If they get that right, it'll be an amazing time to be in the hobby and explore the world.
Oh yeah, definitely. I do hope they do Kislev.
Well, they have said they're going to, but they just haven't given us a time frame. But they talk specifically about there'll be bear cavalry in the game and what have you. So one to look out for,
because they'll look amazing.
Oh yeah. Have you seen the giant elemental bear thing? It's like that they can summon out of the snow. Yeah. I mean, I don't know how that would translate to the tabletop in particular. I mean, you might have to go and go to the zoo and buy like a massive plushy polar bear or something.
I thought you were going to say an actual polar bear then.
Well, I wouldn't recommend that as much as you didn't recommend drinking copious pints of beer Moretti in the last one.
Yeah.
All right, well, I think that rounds us out. So thank you very much for watching, guys. Be sure to share your thoughts and opinions and comments with us. We do read all of the comments. I really enjoy hearing your opinions on things, especially
definitely as well if you've got ideas for subjects that you'd like to hear.
Yeah.
Or if you disagree with Dan because he's completely wrong. on anything.
I would really like to hear that, actually. I'd really like to hear reasons why they've completely missed the trick by not doing it in the timeline that the computer game is in. I would like to hear, I like for and against. So yeah, let me know. Let me know in the comments why I'm wrong, and I'll be sure to read it. But yeah, make sure you've liked and subscribed if you enjoy, and we will catch you next time.
Cheers, guys.
Bye-bye.
Bye.